Webinar is now streaming live. If we could have that link sent into maybe the chat or something, I think that would be great. I know that Erica just put it in the chat that she would post it on the Facebook.
Yeah, I don't see it. Do you know, is it coming from the CGR or the Student Affairs?
I believe I was told that it would be from the CGR.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I can copy the streaming link because maybe it's like a host thing, perhaps. So there we go.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, okay. So I think that we should be ready to start. So we can start with a little bit of introductions and also with a kind of debrief on what we're going to be going through today. So my name is Zach. I use he, him, or they, them pronouns, and I am one of the two co-directors of our Student Office of Sustainability on campus. So I work on campus to improve the quantity and the quality of our sustainability programming in a lot of different fields. And I kind of helped with organizing a panel today that we have with a bunch of our incredible sustainability folks from on campus and even an alum. This is a panel that's going to be moderated by Professor Ward Allebach, and we are going to have a, after this introduction, we're going to each panelist will be giving a brief verbal presentation on their biggest sustainability highlights and their student power insights. And then we're going to kind of go into a question answer format from Ward. And then at the very end, we will have questions from the audience as well. And we encourage you to be using the Q&A feature in the webinar if you have any questions during that time or during our actual panel itself. So with that note, I will pass to Julia for introductions.
Hi everyone, I'm Julia, or Jules, she, her pronouns, and I'm from the Planned Parenthood, Pitt Planned Parenthood Generation Action Club. And I'll pass it off to Casey.
Hi folks, I'm Casey Gill. I used to be a Pitt student. I graduated in 2015, but I helped do a couple different things in sustainability while I was at Pitt. And it's really exciting to see a lot of new faces and all the Pitt students doing great work. I am currently the co-founder of Pittsburgh Restaurant Workers Aid, a group built on mutual aid to assist restaurant workers that are under and unemployed. And I currently, for my job, I am a political consultant with Unite, which is a statewide PAC. I will popcorn it over to Maya.
Hi, so I'm Maya. I'm a senior here at Pitt, and currently I'm serving as the director of the Green Fund. So for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we're a part of the university that funds sustainability projects. So any student, any group of students, anyone in the undergraduate schools are able to come to us and apply for funding for any sustainable project that they want to apply for. And those applications are open right now. So you can always come to us for any project you want to see on campus, whether you're a part of a student organization or just an individual student by yourself.
I think this goes to me now, right? Okay, cool. Yeah, so thanks very much for having me here today. My name is Ward Allebach. I'm adjunct professor in the Environmental Studies program. I've been working with students on all sorts of incredible sustainability projects since 2002. And before we get started, I have a few remarks, before we get into the stuff by the panelists also. Because this is about student power and sustainability. And, this is something that's really near and dear to my heart because I've been working with students for so long here. Power is a really loaded word. I mean, it usually seems to imply that somebody else has the power, people and power, and power plays and, rich and powerful and power hitters in baseball. I mean, it's always someone else who has it. and certainly not me. And of course, that's exactly what people in positions of power want you to think, because it helps them to keep their power. The more passive we are, the more things stay the same. But the funny thing about power is that the truth is exactly the opposite. You actually have all the power. No one makes decisions for you. And when people start making different decisions, when we start questioning people in power and the way we live, when we stand up for ourselves and for others, you might not see an immediate change in the world, but you'll almost immediately notice a change in yourself. That's you taking your power. And it feels good, especially when you do it from a place of love and compassion. So here on the Pitt campus, students have the power to make change. If you don't believe it, that's only because you haven't been hip deep in it, like all these panelists have been. Because when it comes to sustainability on this campus, 90% of the initiatives have come from students. 90% of the changes that have happened only happened because students stood up and took their power. I've had the incredible privilege of working with all of our panelists here today on all sorts of initiatives over the years. So thanks again to you for being here to learn about what they are doing, and hopefully you can be part of the changes on campus moving forward. When you start believing in how change works and how to be a part of it, you'll want more. And then you'll have the power to keep it up for the rest of your life too. Before I pass along to our panelists, I want to encourage all you guys today to liberally use that Q&A function down there at the bottom when you have questions about anything that's being said, or if you just want to hear more about something that we're talking about. I'll do my best to make your questions and ideas part of the dialogue. Thanks very much, and I guess I'll pass it to Zach.
Thank you very much, Ward. And I'm actually going to immediately toss it directly over to Julia to start the verbal presentations off. Thank you.
All right, so hello again, my name is Julia. And like I said, I'm from the Pitt Planned Parenthood Club. Generation Action is our full name. And activism and sustainability is something that is very important to both me personally and the club. So from the club perspective, we have been trying to really focus on that term Generation Action because as we are all Generation Z in the club, I think that we have a lot of power in this country and in this world right now to make a change. It's really shown throughout the news and just throughout the past couple of years how powerful our voices can really be. So we are really trying to push that and like make sure that everyone in college right now and in our club knows how much power they do have. And some initiatives that we have done throughout the past couple of years. So last semester, we were able to get a bunch of sustainable menstrual cups and pads to deliver around for free for people on campus, or students or whoever wanted them. So that was really awesome. And that's just a way that, you know, it's cost effective, it's sustainable, and it's just a great overall thing that we were able to do. And from more of a Planned Parenthood, just like nationally side and as a club, something that I really find important is sex education. So it's not something that is as good as it should be for a lot of people, but the sustainability within sex education, so you know, like a long lasting effect once you learn it as soon as you're younger, or you know, as soon as you do in school, it's going to have an effect throughout your life. And as soon as we can, you know, try and get sex education more normalized and, you know, remove period stigma and just all this good stuff, I think that it'll have a really long lasting effect on society and as anyone that uses Planned Parenthood as a whole. And thank you guys so much for being here. I'm excited to talk.
Yeah, so I can start off next on that. So, like I said, I'm a part of the Green Fund, and very much along the same lines of what Julia was sort of touching on. Sustainability encompasses so many things beyond just protecting wildlife. Those sorts of issues that directly involve the planet is 100% a part of it that is incredibly valuable, but there is also a huge human component to that. And that's one of the things that's really wonderful about the Green Fund is that we're able to empower students to be able to act in any part of sustainability that they feel is very important to their community. The menstrual cup project, actually, that Julia mentioned, is something that the Green Fund was able to fund in the past. That's only one of many initiatives we've been able to fund. We've funded for solar panels, art installations, supplies for pit pantry or hydroponics. Basically anything you could imagine could be done in sustainability. But the really crucial part of that is that we are a passive organization. We don't create projects on our own. We don't fund things that we do. We are only here to empower students to take on that initiative themselves. And just like Board said, that student power is so important. So student advocacy for me, and I think for the fund, largely is about giving students the resources and the power to be able to achieve the changes that they want to see on their campus and in their community. And I think one of the really valuable parts of that is they can also then take that experience and go forward with it once they leave the university. We're very much, a practice run for students to be able to learn how to work in those existing structures and get funding and get things done and really achieve what needs to happen. So certainly for me, I think it's about empowering students directly to be able to build upon the community that we all love so dearly.
Perfect. Cool. Well, I guess I'll go next. I think in hearing this from a lot of the Pitt students and just hearing, I have some friends that are still in Pitt. I have some friends in our Pittsburgh restaurant worker community that just recently graduated, or they were working part-time in many different restaurants. And it's bringing me back to when SUS first was created, the Student Office of Sustainability. And this is a place where, like, as the folks on this panel are showing, many different perspectives can come and really talk about sustainability. And I think when we were first coming up with the proposal, the idea was having a space where we could have opportunities to listen to different perspectives and teach one another, and also see how everything is really interconnected. Like what's going on with Planned Parenthood, how can we create an event that encompasses both and enhances the mission and makes people excited and want to do more and drives up momentum and all of those things. A little bit with what I'm doing right now with Pittsburgh Restaurant Workers Aid, and something that I just want to, if I can stress one thing for all organizers and all the Pitt students, which is going to sound weird, but definitely make friends that are not organizers, because they are organizers, they just don't know it yet. And they also have incredible perspective. When I went into Pitt, I remember meeting Trevet at Legume and just being so amazed at how restaurants work. And I remember begging him for a stage, which means that you go to work at a restaurant, you don't get paid, they sometimes feed you, just to see how things are going, and just being amazed at how much work and how much thoughtfulness went into the sustainability of the restaurant, how it operated. And that just kind of drove me into the restaurant industry. I say this a lot, the restaurant workers are the best organizers in the world. We don't necessarily go out every day and be like, I'm going to conquer sustainability today, and this is how I'm going to do it. We do it subtly. We do it without necessarily putting as much thought as other organizations. When we had everyone pretty much lose their job on March 16th, it was a no-brainer to start this mutual aid group because we needed help. Farms need help right now. If we're talking about local sustainable farms, they were the first folks to give us stuff that they weren't able to sell, which is great. Commonplace Coffee, all of these places just heard and saw what was happening to fellow workers and just went for it, and it was amazing. We've been going on for, I guess, I don't know, 7 months, almost 6 months, And it's just been amazing to see how we continue to work with organizations that have been working in sustainable food. 412 Food Rescue gives us produce on a weekly basis. We're giving out 100 care packages to restaurant families all around the county by deliveries, and we're optimizing routes, so it's a little bit less on like car impact and such, but a lot of folks aren't able to go grocery shopping still. And I mean, we're in a pandemic, so organizing obviously has been a little bit different and very into Zoom meetings, but this is a perfect time to really check up on each other. One of the reasons why, and this is kind of going back into being in a silo and feeling like you're in a silo, and the pandemic really put us in silos. For restaurant communities, we've always been in silos. There will be incidences and issues happening in one restaurant, it's happening in most restaurants. Once we created like a virtual space to share all of these concerns, it made us feel like we could actually accomplish something. And it made us feel like this is not only happening to me. And I think when we're talking about sustainability, I mean, I remember as a teenager seeing like recycling issues and being like, well, this, I mean, I guess this is only happening in my family, like, come on. But as I approached Pitt and went into like hearing from other folks and kind of just like sometimes just not talking and listening, I was able to actually see like how we connect, how we could move forward. Let's think about strategy and let's get stuff done. So again, thank you all so much for your time. And I'm excited to answer some questions.
All right, so I think that kind of what we've been hearing from our other panelists is whether you are a member of an organization on campus, whether you are a member of your community, whether you are perhaps like a person who has a position of leadership, or what one might say a leader, a person of power in an organization, you have the capacity to directly influence change through a number of different ways by either advocating, by activating, or by organizing. And whenever we look at the University of Pittsburgh community, and especially look at the University of Pittsburgh during COVID-19 right now, where we have this campus-wide COVID-19 theme of the power of Pitt. And we're identifying this power that individual people have to maintain the health and integrity and the safety of our university community, and how every single person has that within them, how we translate this concept of power into ourselves and our organizations and the things that we do. And we recognize the fact that no matter where we're starting from, or no matter where we think that we are going, sustainability has the capacity to intersect no matter where that is. And you have the ability to look at all of the different things that you're doing through the lens of sustainability, regardless of whether you're in Planned Parenthood, activating around sex education, menstrual rights, just basic human rights in a lot of different cases, whether you are in your local communities, like we've heard before. And in my personal cases, as one of the two directors of the Student Office of Sustainability, we are presented with a lot of different things through our council, where we are looking at campus-wide sustainability initiatives, and we're trying to implement them. We work closely with our Green Fund. We work closely with the Pitt Pantry. We work closely with the Bike Cave in Thriftsburg and all of our other organizations. And we try to do everything that we can to facilitate the ability for students to use the power that they have to actually enact change on campus. If there's anything that I think we could do that could be the best, it would be to create as many change agents that we can possibly create on this campus in sustainability, and to get people thinking about it, and to get people to fundamentally understand how sustainability goes beyond just recycling, which has, come up, I think, 2 or 3 times already in just this conversation that we've had, because a lot of us know that it does go beyond that. It goes far beyond that, and it looks at the systems that we have in place. It looks at the people that we have in those systems. And as Ward mentioned earlier, it looks at who has the power in these systems. I've personally, through a class that Ward actually teaches, I've worked on trying to eliminate plastic bottles on campus. And it's a monstrosity of a concept, looking at Pepsi, the corporation Pepsi, and the contract that our university has with that massive corporation. And I've helped Planned Parenthood with the menstrual project as well, and looking at finding partners for that and installing it and implementing it and finding funding and not getting university support for it. Getting the university to tell us, we think that that's a great idea. We really like the concept, but we don't have the money for that. And it's like, well, we're the students and you are the university. So well, do you think that we have the money for this? And trying to question the power players and think of how you can introduce these concepts in a way that encourages the university to reflect your views and take the things that you're advocating for and like permanently incorporate them into the university culture, whether they originally want to or not. And I think that every single person, as many of us have mentioned, has the power to kind of activate around that and make those changes happen.
Thank you very much to our panelists. They were all great introductions. You guys are awesome. I want to start off. So this is good. We're going to try and make this like a conversational kind of thing. And you guys all know how much I love stories. So I want to play off of what Zach was just saying and throw out there for you guys to no one in particular. You know, the university takes a lot of heat from students for a lot of different sustainability issues, you know, I mean, from things that Zach was talking about to COVID, to divestment, recycling and single-use plastics, you know, all that stuff. Can any of you speak to how to confront these kinds of problems while also maintaining the positive relationships that you need with decision makers to ensure progress on these same issues that you want to change?
I would love to speak on that. Yeah, so as part of the Green Fund, that is an issue that I encounter almost every day with every application. It's just the nature of the work that I've been doing and that we do on the fund. We are, you know, handling money that's coming from students and student tuition, but, you know, still there's university oversight to that. And we need to collaborate with the university and its departments and all sorts of different bodies in power. And a lot of times, you know, our authority only extends so much as purchasing power. We need to be able to connect the people who apply to us with those departments to get things done, because they're going to need to be accepted or cleared by the university and things along those lines. And what I have found to be the most effective for us is to not only have a really civil discourse, but to try and impress on the university and other bodies of power why it is so important and how it is really an issue that not only is something that students care about, but the university should care about because it matters to students. Ward put it so well at the beginning of this talk, but you know, we have all of the power in the world. And at the end of the day, you know, the university, despite all of its authorities, still absolutely relies on every single student who's here. And without your money and your coming here, the university wouldn't exist. And I think it's really important to demonstrate, like with the menstrual products, you know, this is a need. And this is a need that students have. And fulfilling this need could be advantageous to you. And it's unfortunate to have to put it in those terms of what is an advantage for the university and what is not. But sometimes you have to discuss with larger bodies in their language. And a lot of times that tends to be the case. So I would really encourage people to maintain that civil discourse, maintain those networks, and try and make sure that you have strong relationships with these larger bodies, just because it's a necessary thing to have. And, you know, whether we like it or not, that's just something that we have to do if we want to be effective in the activism that we're doing. And, you know, absolutely always be critical of those institutions, always be critical of the communities you're a part of. As a participant, that's one of the jobs that you need to be in charge of, is making sure you're questioning and understanding reasoning coming from the bodies of power that you're working in, but doing it in a way where you're not forcing it, you're convincing. You want them to come to your side and really understand why it's an important issue. And that is just best achieved through communication.
Thank you, Maya. Would anyone else like to jump in on that?
I do have a couple of thoughts. So it's going to build a lot on what Maya said. But I had, through Maya's little talk there and through a little bit of pondering on my own, I think that I kind of nailed down like 3 different C's that you could possibly think of in this context. And I would say that they are creativity, collaboration, and courtesy. And so basically what I'm saying here is that if you can collaborate with other organizations, you can create allies. Allies are going to be fundamental to achieving your goals, to proving your point, and to bolstering any argument that you're trying to make. Because the more people that you have that believe what you say and can agree with you, the more likely you are going to be able to get more people to think that, especially when you're looking at administrators. So collaboration is key in that essence, and ensuring that that is meaningful collaboration and true support, and like you're really building something together with other organizations rather than just like slapping their name on it. Creativity, because these people see just constant nonsense all day long. They have to like read emails, they have to do PR, they have to deal with the boring university things. And if you're not going to like strike their attention and you're just going to take them into another like boring meeting or Zoom call where they just have to like look at the screen and watch you talk for half an hour and then they have to think about it, you're like, what are you going to achieve there? If you're not hitting them with something that's creative, that actually is notable or memorable or interesting to them, then you're not going to leave the impression that you need to get them to continue thinking about you and what you want done outside of that hour-long meeting that you have. And then the courtesy layer is to ensure that whenever you're having this correspondence and you are producing this relationship, that you can do it in a way that fosters like kindness and a level of Maya said civility, because you don't want to come off as rude even if they're not willing to do what you want them to. You need to like maintain that level of civility to just fundamentally have their respect even if they disagree with you, because if you can get that much, you've already accomplished something that puts you closer to your goal.
I want to play off of that. Casey and Jules, you guys can feel free to respond to that also, but I also want to throw another extra layer on top of that. Both Zach and Maya referred to, civil discourse and the importance for courtesy. But I mean, we're in an era of misinformation here, and we're butting heads against people all the time over what seems like they should be very basic human rights and environmental rights and things like that. How do you guys deal with those kinds of opposing views? Not saying from the university, but as an organization, how do you as an organization deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really important to continue having conversations. And I think the misinformation and like sometimes hard conversations to have is very applicable to Planned Parenthood. A lot of people in our club volunteer at the clinic downtown, and there are always protesters there outside of the clinic. And so it's very like we're all very adamant about just like ignoring and not talking about it. But then I guess it's kind of hard to get to a point of when do you talk to them and like when do you talk to people about this, because I guess it's tricky with Planned Parenthood because a lot of times it's a religious aspect and something that's like fundamental to their beliefs, so it's hard to talk about. But I think that whenever I do have conversations with people about Planned Parenthood, I mean, misinformation is one thing. Like everyone just thinks Planned Parenthood is about abortion, but it's not. They do a lot of other just like regular healthcare, sometimes not even involving sex. Like just it's a really good place for anything like that could be involving healthcare. So it's important to know that, but making sure that when you are having a conversation, if you are just arguing and talking over each other, I feel like we all know this, no one's listening to the other person. You're just thinking about what you're going to say next, which is never a good thing to do in a conversation, because the point of the conversation is to listen to what the other people say and like, absorb that and then think about what you're going to say. So I think it's important to be able to have conversations with your own belief and hold strong in that your own beliefs, but also make sure that you're listening to the other people when they are speaking instead of just thinking about what you're going to say next.
Thanks,
And
Jules. Yeah.
I think on a similar note, we have, so at Pittsburgh Restaurant Workers Aid, we do like restaurant workers, if folks here have been involved in the restaurant industry, many different perspectives. We have every single perspective, every single, like, folks from all over the world in the industry, which is fantastic. And that's why it's one of the best jobs in the world, because you get to work with that atmosphere and all of those different perspectives. I will say, like, listening is fantastic. We did this, and I think this is genius. We did this, we have a lot of recipients in Allegheny County. We have some in Ohio and we have some in West Virginia. Right throughout the summer, we decided to check in with these folks. So really the check-in call is just like saying, like, how are you doing? Is there any type of resources? But we actually listen to what they have to say. And from that, we build this relationship where we're able to, like, have a relationship with our recipients instead of just seeing this as like a folk who needs assistance. This is a friend in the restaurant industry who has a ton of other friends in the restaurant industry. So we're kind of building an entire network of folks that we could easily tap into to mobilize if we want to escalate, which that takes, like, that's really hard to determine sometimes, especially in a crisis. But the point where we escalate and ask for more, because I mean, minimum wage hasn't been raised in a really long time, and we cannot, there's tip workers, we can get all into this. There's a lot of issues in the restaurant industry that trickle down into a lot of different industries and sustainable, in sustainability and like office management jobs, etc. But when we're having those discussions with folks, and I know because a lot of our work is related to Facebook, so I know I have a pretty good idea of these folks' political opinions based on their interactions I have on Facebook. We all know those folks, they go real into that, but we're able to have a conversation. And although Pittsburgh Restaurant Workers Aid, we are a 501c3, so we can't get political, we're able to have kind of like conversations that stay on that line, and we are able to have conversations. State reps are up for re-election this November. That's hugely important. That's a really great opportunity to do a lot of great work. And we've been having issues with state reps in regards to unemployment. So there's a lot of conversations that we have. I remember as a folk at the university just being going to one meeting and just being completely knocked down, and then just being like, okay, let's debrief. That was the wrong approach, and let's look at our notes and try to figure out what we should do next.
Thanks very much, you guys. So, you know, part of the purpose of what we're doing here today, right, is to give people who are attending the opportunity to get involved, you know, to give some channels for people to get involved. And I think it could be really illustrative for you guys to talk a little bit about some of the stories about how you got involved. Like, when was, like, throw this out there, when was the first time you realized that you had the power to affect change?
I think that this question might even be one that like all of us could answer, to be honest. So I don't know what that'll look like. I'm really excited to hear what other people have to say. But for me, it was probably really at the university and with the Jumpstart Pittsburgh program. So Jumpstart is another thing in the Office of PitServes that is not the Student Office of Sustainability. And it is an early childhood access education program that sends college students into local preschools to support their classrooms, to reduce their student to teacher ratios, and to like contribute to like new and unique lesson plans based on emotional and mental comprehension and literacy, as well as actual reading and writing literacy and things like that, to just generally bridge the education gap. in communities that might be considered vulnerable or under-resourced, although we try to avoid using terms like that as much as possible. And what really stuck out with Jumpstart was that it was a very direct form of service. And through looking at like the civic pathways and looking at the different ways you can serve, whether it's direct service, whether it's philanthropy, whether it is what this session is on, which is kind of organizing, advocating, and activism, direct service is probably the easiest one for you to get an immediate return and to fundamentally understand why you are experiencing change. Because with Jumpstart Pittsburgh, you would literally see a child developmentally change in terms of their like reading comprehension, in terms of their comfort level with speaking and pronouncing words, in terms of their ability to write their own name and to form complex thoughts and then convey those thoughts to you once they've had them. And it is so, that was definitely like that moment where I was like, this is literally changing like a child's entire trajectory in terms of how they've been able to develop. And not only that, we're also seeing the teachers have the moment to take the time for themselves to just like sit down. And that's so important for them because we've talked about like the pay. Teachers are severely underpaid for the amount of labor that they have to put in addition to the fact that a lot of teachers have to purchase things for their classrooms from their own budget, and they can't like deduct that from their taxes up to like a certain value. And so you see the change on both sides, children, families, teachers, everything. And it's just great.
Yeah, I can go next. It's a very interesting question thinking about like the first time I really felt power. So I'm from Virginia, but it's like the very top of Virginia. So I'm very close to DC. And I just feel my mom was always very active. So when I think of activism, the first thing I think of is protesting. That's just like, that's how my brain works. And that's probably because my mom, because she was always going to everything and stuff. And I would go to stuff with her. Like there was one, she was pregnant one time with me and was marching along, doing all that stuff. So it was always very relevant to my life. And I was there, but I don't think I actually realized how much power I have like for myself until I went to March for Our Lives, which was a very great event. And it was even cooler because it was just all the kids, they were all, you know, either my age, a little bit older or younger, and everyone there was there for the same thing. And there were a lot of people, like younger people there just marching as a whole. And there were so many people there. And it was just a very great experience where I actually realized like, okay, this is the power that we have. Like these people were able to use their power to create this. And yeah, that's probably the most. And then that just kind of transferred over when I realized like, okay, so this is something that I can do, and how can I take that and make it a little bit smaller and put it into the community and then all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's my story.
Thanks, Jules.
Yeah,
Hey.
very much like oh, sorry.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, very much like Jules, I think it was always something that was part of my family to be active, politically active in my community. But I definitely didn't ever feel a sense of power for most of that growing up. I was very active in high school and volunteering, but I'm a summer baby. I was always youngest in my class. I grew up being much shorter. And the perspective was always that I kind of took a second hand. I was never in a leadership role. I very rarely would express my own opinions on things. I was very shy in that respect. And I felt largely powerless throughout most of high school. And while it was super fulfilling to be able to be active in my community and volunteer, and I would never give up any part of that experience, it certainly wasn't one that was empowering for me. And then I took Ward's class actually when I was still an underclassman, and was able to start my own sustainability project, and then was introduced later to the fund and got the ability to apply to Green Fund and eventually get to the position I'm in today. But there was definitely a moment of turnaround for me as a sophomore at Pitt when I realized that I could actually serve on a board and have this position of relative authority, but be able to take that power into my own hands to make decisions for myself and to create ideas and initiatives instead of just participating in them as a follower. And I think I would encourage everybody who's listening here today, be active in every way that you possibly can. Participate in volunteering when you have the opportunity, and protesting, but always have your own ideas about that, and never be afraid to express those ideas that you have, to institute any changes that you want to see instituted, and to apply for positions now while you're at the university, whether that be in a student org or through the university, to try and start taking that initiative for yourself, because I think you'll find that's hugely empowering in terms of activism, but also in personal development.
Hey, Casey, how about you jump in on this and talk about experiences in taking power after you graduate? I know you've told us a lot about the restaurant stuff, but how does your experience as an undergraduate springboard you into taking power out in the world afterwards?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so I kind of going back to the previous question a little bit. When I was at Pitt, I, in some cases, felt pretty powerless for a really long time. There's a lot of accomplishments that were made when I was at Pitt. There's a lot of things that we did that were amazing. But as we continued fighting with different admins, I think it was pretty hard to always find power, and I really honestly found power just with the activists and organizers and solidarity around that, trying to work and be a student, making changes, making sometimes very sensible changes, and that sometimes that was a lot. So I think like one of the things that when I graduated from Pitt, I went into community organizing. I kind of found my way out. Something that I noticed the biggest, and going back to what kind of Julia and Maya said, I'm actually from a very conservative family, so I was not politically active, or I was not active in my community. My parents taught me just to be like nice to everyone, which is cool and helpful, but it doesn't necessarily build that momentum, and it doesn't necessarily help everyone that needs help. So when I went from Pitt, I kind of spent time to really understand where I wanted to devote my time. And I got really involved in an electoral campaign for magistrate, which is a judicial campaign that has a lot of say in the community. And that's the most power I ever felt electorally and from an activism point. And that's when I decided to get involved in electoral organizing. Organizing as an adult, and this is very apparent in the university as well, it can be hard. It's really hard. I've taken years off where I just don't do that work, and then I work in the restaurant industry, and the same sort of issues are present in the restaurant industry. And we built the Pittsburgh Restaurant Workers Aid, which is really empowering, but still, I think like as we're having that conversation, it's really, if you need to take a year off and try to figure out what you want to focus on, that's okay. If you want to take a break, you deserve it, and you should take a break, and we can revisit like moving forward. It's not just on yourself as an individual to move forward, it's on a lot of people to move forward with you. And the best thing about like coming from the Pittsburgh community, I remember when I was on divestment and just being like, hey, I need a break. And Sage or Troy or Nick would just be like, okay, I got this. And it was just that sense of the community is the most powerful that I would feel. It was never really like having conversations with the admin. It was never necessarily the position that I was holding. It was really the like opportunity to connect with folks and be able to just like taper off.
Casey, I think that last part there was especially referring to support systems, right? I mean, this is really difficult emotional work sometimes because it's stuff we care about very, very deeply. And, sometimes you do run into dead ends, and sometimes, it does feel like you're banging the head against a wall. But part of the idea of feeling the power is also to have people with you to help support you and bring you up. I think that's a really, really important point that you made there. And that's something that you can find here at the university. You can find communities of like-minded people, especially through the SUS and through the other organizations that are here talking today. I want to let you guys know that we've reached a point in our program where we're willing and very able to open to Q&A. If you guys want to use that Q&A fund to ask any questions from any of our panelists, we'd be happy to field that. Please feel free to type them on in. I don't know if we can take live things. I don't see any unmuting options here. So if I don't see anything in the chat coming up, then we'll just continue with this conversation. And along that line, while I'm looking for chatty type stuff, we talked about, I think Zach mentioned in his thing about creativity and how important creativity is, right? And, we're stuck in this Zoom era where we're always sitting here staring at our computers and all these faces, and it's not that we don't love these people. It's not that the work isn't empowering. It's that, we're all getting this thing Zoom fatigue, right? I mean, we're like, just tired of doing this all the time. Well, what I want to ask you guys, what are some of the most creative things that you've seen in this Zoom environment to keep people engaged and energized? And don't forget to use the Q&A.
I don't know, this might have just been really energizing for me, but I think it was really important. There's, in kind of switching hats a little bit to political consultant, there is a county councilwoman. She's everyone's county councilwoman if you live in Allegheny County. Bethany Hallam, and she hosted a people's council on paid sick leave, which was genius. It was very engaging. Folks were able to express their concerns about paid sick leave, paid safe leave, which are both things that are current. Well, paid sick leave being something that's in county council committees right now. But anyway, it was really, really fantastic to see all of the restaurant workers going on and sharing their testimonials. Also having county councilwoman just like listen to our thoughts, really great. Because it also gave us the opportunity to have an understanding of where everything was at, what type of pressure we could place, and how to move forward. On a rather fun note, there's been a couple fundraisers on Zoom that have been neat. I went to a fundraiser with a puppet show that raised money for PRWA, which was really cool and really unique. I can't do that.
Thanks, Casey. Has anybody else had any positive experience, like positive creative experiences in the Zoom environment?
I mean, I think in some of the organizations that I work in, Green Fund, and then also some university jobs that I have that is now all through Zoom, like basic team building exercises. And it sounds very silly when you just kind of put it like that. But like Casey was saying, like the more engaged that you can get with that and the more creative it can be, the more personal it feels and just a little bit less like you're only talking to people through a screen. So like I know that I start all of my meetings with just checking in with everybody and how are you doing, and just taking the pressure off from whatever that professional responsibility is for a second, just to, remember that we're just human beings. And even if there's a screen between us, it is so nice just to connect with my colleagues and my team members and whoever it is that you're working with. We also like to do presentation nights. Sometimes that can be really fun. It's something I've done with my friends since the pandemic started, where everyone just makes a fun presentation that they can screen share and talk about anything that they want to talk about. And I think that really basic step of starting with connecting with people and their basic interests and how they're doing can really help to build up those strong networks and know that you have another person to lean on and another resource that you can work with and together when you're actually engaging in activism later on.
Thanks very much, Maya. I want to loop back around to sustainability a little bit and, personal sustainability, because this is also about taking power. What advice do you guys have for people who like the idea of living sustainably, but really don't understand the differences in all the choices that we have to make every day. With so many choices, how do you prioritize, without getting bogged down in all the details and all the science and the politics?
I think that one way that you can do that is to take a short period of time, whatever you have, to think about what changes make the most sense for your own life, because a lot of folks will try to advertise sustainability as like a cookie cutter concept, like everybody could go vegan, everybody could get rid of their car and like bike everywhere, everybody could buy carbon offsets, everybody could start organizing, everybody can go to protests, everybody can do all of these different things. But not everybody can do all of those things. Maybe if you are somebody who has an immuno deficiency, you don't want to go to protests, you don't want to go out, you don't want to do a lot of things that could expose you. Maybe you are in a situation where you don't have the capacity to just go vegan. Maybe there are health reasons, maybe there are financial reasons, maybe there are personal reasons. But perhaps you do have the ability to start networking with your community garden, because you just so happen to have one that is close enough that you could walk to it on the weekends if you have the time and you're not working, and you can contribute to a program that gets community members to connect with each other and also provides a valuable resource outside of just that basic form of connection and the kind of like relaxation and meditation that some people receive from doing things like gardening, but it produces a tangible result at the end that has a sustainability impact in the way that it can provide food, or the way that it can provide those kinds of things. Or maybe you know somebody who's trying to sell their bike because they don't need their bike anymore, and you live just close enough to your work and there's safe routes and you can bike to work. Or you can take public transportation to work if it's not a like financial problem for you. It's basically about taking that list of all of the possible millions of different things that you can do and then just applying them where you can, rather than trying to assume that there's any one way to do sustainability.
Yeah, and kind of jumping off that, I think like personally, I do what I can, whatever I'm able to, and financially it makes sense because as an underemployed restaurant worker, I have to think about finances. But my most important pitch is register to vote. I'm dropping the link right now. You can check your registration. There's a massive election happening this cycle. It's happening November 3rd. My other pitch to y'all is ask 5 friends if they've checked registration. Registration ends on October 19th. You can request for a mail-in ballot until October 27th. And the election's on November 3rd. Besides that, with the election coming up, there's plenty of opportunities to get involved electorally. Canvassing, there's text banking, which is so fun. I love text banking. And also phone banking. So all the last 2 being very, very safe. From your home. So there's definitely ways to get involved. State rep and state senate have a huge say on large change, potentially large change, statewide change on sustainable issues. Obviously, we can get into the presidency, but yeah. And then next year in the city of Pittsburgh, we have city council race, county council, magistrate, common pleas, school board, all of these really amazing races that are going to be happening. One of the things that I wish I did more as a Pitt student is leave Oakland. You can't physically leave Oakland, but you can virtually leave Oakland and help other races. Check on voter registration, get involved in a lot of different ways. It's very valuable.
Yeah, definitely want to emphasize everything that Zach and Casey said. Could not be more true and more valuable and important. At least from my position, my two huge recommendations would be to take classes. If you're not sure about what sustainability really is or what it looks like on the ground, Pitt has so many wonderful classes and professors like Ward, Dr. Sanchez, so many people that you right now have the opportunity to learn from, and then also have a forum to learn from your peers and find out what sustainability looks like and what it can look like for you. And then the other thing I would suggest is apply to the Green Fund. You know, if you don't think that you're able to, or you want to do something more than those individual choices, reach out to us, apply to us, and start up a project. If you know that you want to get involved, but don't have a project idea or don't know where to start, we actually have a project ideas tab that's just ready on our website. You can go there. It's sorted by issue areas, so you can find an issue area you're super passionate about more so than others. And we've got research already linked there for you to get ideas about the project. We've got networking, communications, and contacts, so people you're going to need to talk to get that done. And I'm going to post the link for our website in the chat right now. If you want to apply, you go straight through there. And if you want any project ideas, like I said, we have a tab for that. And it's a really, really easy way to start getting involved and creating a lasting change.
Thanks, Maya. So we got to start wrapping up here. You've each got about 1 minute. And what I'd like to ask you here is, you know, do you have any closing thoughts on this whole idea of student power and sustainability? And importantly, how can the folks who are here today get involved through what you're doing? Jules, would you like to go first?
Sure, I will go first. So if anyone's interested in joining the Pitt Planned Parenthood Club, I'll put our like Instagram link, and that's probably the best way to contact us. I'm actually the social media chair, so you'll get me directly. And also we have like an email list, group me. I think we do a lot of actionable things, like even this semester when it's a little bit hard to, you know, feel like you're actually doing stuff. We have a lot of phone banking. There you can volunteer at the clinic. We're gonna still be trying to, you know, petition or things around campus. So it'll still be a pretty good semester. And yeah, thank you guys so much for everything. This was very great.
Casey, why don't we go to you?
Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for hosting this. Yeah, so I think for Pittsburgh Restaurant Workers Aid, there's a ton of ways that you can help. Obviously, if you know someone who's a restaurant worker and is dealing with, we can assist folks with food resources, unemployment resources, a lot of different resources. If anyone's struggling with that, I will put the link to our care package delivery, and folks can request a produce box, diapers, pet food, there's a list on our website. If folks are able to help us with deliveries, with contactless, incredibly social distant deliveries, that's awesome. We do 100 deliveries each week, which takes a team of like 30 to 40 volunteers each week. So that's fantastic. And I can drop the link over to that in a second. And yeah, as I said before, big election year, register to vote, and definitely take time to take a break if you need it. Read a good book.
Thanks, Casey. Maya?
Yeah, like I said, definitely do apply to us, start taking that initiative. And that in general would just be my biggest piece of advice for a step forward. If you are able to right now in this moment, get involved, don't hesitate. There are so many amazing resources available to you right now through student organizations, through your colleagues and peers, and through your classes. Take absolute advantage of those now while you're in university. It is so important to develop those skills for the future, and so you can be active right now as a student. And I'm also just going to be posting in the chat the Green Fund social media that you can follow for updates on what we're doing. And then also my email if you have any questions. And thank you all so much for coming to this.
Thanks, Maya. So I want to thank everybody for coming also. And now I'm going to switch over to Zach for the final word.
Thank you, Ward. So I think that my last statement is pretty much just going to focus on recognizing that we all have power in our personal lives, in the spaces that we fill, in the communities that we are in, whether we're talking about academic communities, whether we're talking about organizations, service, all of those different places. We all have that, and we all have the capacity to grow and to our own power and the power of those around us as well. Whenever we consider sustainability and whenever we facilitate sustainability projects, there's a lot of work to be done on ensuring that other people are empowered, because a lot of sustainability work focuses on justice and ensuring that people who are not in the room can be brought into that room and given a permanent place to stay, so that their voices are always heard and that their power is not taken away from them, and that they will be able to maintain that and keep that establishment within themselves and within the spaces that we all hold. And my recommendation is to activate yourselves on campus, outside of campus, whether that's through the Office of Fit Serves, whether you're looking at student leadership, whether you're looking at education, sustainability, advocacy. You're going to be able to do something like that on campus and off campus. So figure out what your resources are, give yourself like a self-assessment, a community assessment, and start figuring out where you need to look to find those places for you to incorporate yourself and start building up. I'll drop my own email into the chat and the SUSE's email. So if you have questions and you would like some assistance on your journey, we can definitely help you out. Otherwise, this will be the end.